It's like so firmly rooted in our real world that it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine what it must feel like for someone watching for the first time, because of course I saw it many, many times before there was a pandemic.
I have to ask you something. I'm not sure how.
Is it scary?
Yeah.
So how long would you say you've been experiencing symptoms?
Like a month. I can remember some things, but other things are just gone, like details. I can't do details.
Chad, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. Where are you at currently?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, well, yeah, I can see actually the sun in the background, and it looks nice.
How about you? You in
I
New
am
York?
covered in snow in Chicago. It came down I think 9.5 inches over the weekend. So buried basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
But Chicago's nice. Great city.
It is. But this is the time of the year where man, I wish I was back in LA, because getting through the snow, being stuck inside, that's no fun either.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to get to talk to you. I have so many questions for you regarding this movie. Hopefully we knock it all out of the park,
I hope I have answers.
I hope so. I talked to Mattson a few months ago, actually, and I kind of, we briefly mentioned this film, but didn't, want to get into it then because I didn't see the movie yet or anything. Mm-hmm. So now I'm curious, where I know this was based on a short film, right?
Short story.
How the process kind of started. So you guys took a short film and made a feature out of it? Was this short the same concept? If you tell me the background on it, because I think you guys are like Nostradamus in a sense right now with what's happening in the world. So I'm just trying to figure out, what did that short give you of a story to make it into this film?
Yeah, it was a short story, not a short film.
Okay.
There's a writer named Asia Gable who wrote it, I think around 2016. And Mattson saw it and loved it and approached her. And it was, similar. It was about a couple, Emma, or the girl is not named, but she talks about her lover, husband, Jude, who is going through this disease. And the short story was able to sort of paint a bigger picture of what was happening in the world, and involved their families a bit more, but the crux of it was that it was this couple dealing with him losing his memories, and how do you keep building a future if you have to keep rebuilding the past, sort of thing. So Mattson took the core relationship and then he did a really smart and great job of putting the pandemic stuff sort of in the background and treating it as a backdrop to the daily struggles of a ordinary couple. And that's what initially attracted me to the script. It was a great script. Like, you could see it as a movie immediately, which is not often the case with scripts. It just, jumps off the page and felt like a film already. Yeah. But I also just really appreciated how he used small moments to tell both the story of a complete relationship and the story of what's going on in this global pandemic. And it's small moments to tell big stories. And that's what I tried to do in my previous films and what I love. And this was an opportunity to make something bigger that has scope and has world building, but still kept that focus on relationships and characters. Yeah, I mean, the line, when your disaster is everyone's disaster, how do you grieve, was something Mattson just made up in 2017 at his computer, just typing away, and now sort of feels like a mantra that all of us are dealing with. And I'm as amazed as you are at
I wish. So now I got the root of it, where it started. Who's the the fortune teller in a sense here?
Yeah.
You know, I'm interested. I was thinking this when I was watching this movie. I was wondering, I mean, this would be a kind of a question for Mattson too, but for you also, it would be relevant. How do you feel? How did you feel about the movie back when you guys were making it and filming it? And how do you feel about it now that it's out and what's happened in the past year? Has it changed the perception that you have for this film? And how did it change in a sense?
Yes, it has. For me, one of the other things I really liked about the script was that it felt kind of old-fashioned in the sense that it was like completely dreaming up this scenario to give characters problems. And my previous films had been set firmly in the real world with characters dealing with very real problems like racism and bullying and economic issues, and this felt like, oh, this is like an old-fashioned movie where it's just like meant to kind of send you away to this other world where we can imagine that these other problems are happening so that we can use that as an excuse to say something about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so I viewed it really as a kind of escapist movie, even though you often think of that term as being like more joyfully entertaining, but that's how I viewed it. And now, of course, it's the exact opposite. It's like so firmly rooted in our real world that it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine what it must feel like for someone watching for the first time, because of course I saw it many, many times before there was a pandemic. And I was very nervous about it, to be honest, for a long time. Like, is it going to be too triggering? Is it too sad? All this, but have been really encouraged that the early responses that I have seen it's playing more as a cathartic kind of therapeutic reminder for people of what is important in the face of unprecedented and unbelievable circumstances. And I think that because Mattson was so wise to keep all that stuff as backdrop and focus on the love story, that the film sort of continues to play in much the same way it would have, even if it was science fiction.
You know, another thing I thought about watching this movie, I saw a movie, I don't know if you've seen it, called The Father with Anthony Hopkins. It's amazing. You know, it's probably one of the leading movies that's going to be at awards this year.
Yeah.
But it reminded me the story of what he played in this movie with this, and his character deals with Alzheimer's. But also it kind of gives me a perspective on people who deal with Alzheimer's in general, how loss of memory, how scary it is, and how difficult it is for these people who are dealing with it to know that they're losing a sense of themselves. And I think the characters here by Jack and Olivia really portrayed how scary it is to hold on to your normalcy in a lot of ways too, and how, you know, memory is such a valuable thing that we take for granted, you know, because without it, your world is just upside down. And that was kind of the scariness outside of the pandemic backdrop of this movie, was how fragile, you know, something like that are kind of normal senses that we get, and when they're taken away, how life-changing they are. And as I thought of people who deal with Alzheimer's, how difficult it must be for them. And this movie really brought it kind of to light. Was there any thought of that too for you too, that sort of losing memory? If you went into that place thinking, oh my God, what would my life be like? How scary that is.
For sure, yeah. And there was a direct reference to Alzheimer's in this script that we shot that ended up in a scene that got cut. But yeah, it was definitely on our minds, and yeah, you know, we associate that disease with people who are older and don't often think about how it robs them of any potential future, and you know, because they're, you just feel like, oh, you know, that's sad. They're forgetting all their memories. But yeah, when you sort of isolate it and put it in someone your own age's shoes and you realize, oh, not only is it robbing you of your memories, but it's debilitating you from building anything new. And the future becomes so much harder to plan for and think about and even face, because you're stuck so much trying to work on the past. And yeah, I really like that notion that's verbalized by one of her voiceover lines, where she's like, what were we even trying to save? Our shared experiences together. Is that all that I love about him? And I was really drawn to that. Like, why do I love the person that I love? Is it just because we had these particular good times together? And if all those were taken away and I was just looking at her across the room now, starting fresh from scratch, would it still be the same feeling? And there were, big questions that the script asked, and that was what was exciting about doing it. And I knew that working on it with Jack and Olivia would be really great, and they would bring a lot to it, which they did.
They carried a movie. I mean, it's literally, I was thinking too, if these, their performances are so crucial to this whole movie in every essence, if you like switched one of them out, even with a different actor, that could be a different movie in itself too,
For sure.
Tell me about the casting of them. How early on were they involved? Was there others that were potentially, that they, because always with casting is so interesting, how a certain actor can make a movie really come to life. How was the casting on them? Because it's the most vital thing I'd imagine in this film. That relationships at the core of everything. Tell me about the casting of them, and how did you guys kind of get them aboard?
Well, Olivia was on it almost immediately. I think I'm not sure if she had a pre-existing relationship with Mattson or what, or maybe she just saw the short story as well. But I know that she was on it as a producer and an actress from just about the beginning, because Mattson, even when he was writing it with her in mind, and she was the one who requested that she get to use her real English accent for the first time. She's never been able to do that, and she was like, I just have one request, Mattson, let me use my real accent.
And it plays into the script too. You guys used it. I loved it.
So she was on it a long time, and then Jack came on also before me. I was actually kind of like the last piece of the puzzle.
Oh wow.
They had another director on it before me, and I guess that director must have cast Jack. And I'm not sure if there was anyone before him, but it was presented to me as an opportunity to work with both of them, and I was like, hell yeah, of course. And I think at first they were like, I don't know, they were nervous because obviously casting is a huge part of directing, and so to take that away from somebody, I think they were nervous that I would be upset, but I was like, these are two actors that I would literally, be fighting to get on any other project. So this is no problem at all. And so I talked to them both on the phone and flew out to New York to meet with Olivia, and it all happened kind of quickly, but we never had a chance to really all get together because Jack was in London, Olivia was in New York, I'm in LA. And it wasn't until a few days before the shoot started, when they came out to Vancouver, that we finally got a chance to get in there and talk. But Jack also, once he was cast, started talking with Mattson and myself and giving some ideas for his character. So he definitely played a big part also in sort of shaping Jude. Because in the original draft of the script, Jude was a different kind of character, and we sort of molded it to fit Jack's strengths and what Jack wanted to try and what he wanted to do. And so having the luxury of the flexibility to do that, to mold it for both actors, I think is resulting in you feeling the way you do about how it had to be them.
Interesting. I can't let you go without getting an explanation. I love talking to filmmakers about kind of like, always wonder like, oh, movies like this make you think. And I always figure like my judgment of a movie is sort of like, if it makes you think afterwards, that's a great movie. That made an impact on you. Was there any sort of alternate, being Mattson, knowing how creative he is, did you guys tackle or with any other alternate ending? Because this ending in itself, now I'll put the spoiler out there so people won't be spoiled with it, but I was curious, it ended in such a unique and interesting way, as the way it starts, kind of the first scene is the last scene. Was there any other kind of routes that you guys want to go with? And that made me kind of flip the whole, thinking of this movie, that it was Olivia's character all along, in a sense, too. Correct me if I'm wrong, and kind of let me know what the thinking was behind it.
There was never an alternate. It always began and ended on the beach there. However, we did mess around quite a bit with the section in the middle, as a result, where she asks him, do you remember when we first met? And he starts talking about the water park, and the idea of, is that spoiling the fact that this is potentially not the scene we saw in the beginning of the movie is not how they first met. And we like went back and forth on how overt we should make that sequence. And to me, I wanted to, I was okay with the idea of maybe a few audience members see that scene and all of a sudden are like, wait a minute, does that mean that the first scene is not what we thought it was? Like, that's totally fine with me. Because I think at this point in the movie, we've established that memories in general are kind of, sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. This is just a new wrench thrown in the works of like, is he right? Who's, that kind of thing. So the beginning and the ending has always been what it was, but because it's always been what it was, like other parts of the movie had to be really finessed and messed with to find the exact right balance of keeping people engaged and not being like, oh, well, I know everything there is to know about this movie now, I'm going to check out. But yeah, we always knew it would be the beginning and ending that it is. But like the beauty of the movie is it was written to have a non-linear structure and to go back and forth in time. So that was in the script and that's how we shot it. But we still did a lot more of it in editing. Like you could edit the movie 1,000 different ways. And we really spent a lot of time trying lots and lots of different ways of editing it. And that maybe this whole sequence can go in the first act, or maybe it can go in the third act, or, so it was a challenge, but also a lot of fun to kind of mess with it as like a puzzle in the edit.
Wow. Awesome. We're out of time and I probably have another 20,000 questions for you anyway, but really enjoyed the work you and Mattson did together. Like I said, he's a great writer. I mean, I'm so proud to see his work coming up more and more, and also fan of your work too, Chad. So this was a great match and you guys created something really interesting and compelling on so many levels. So just fantastic work.
Thanks. And I can tell you that the movie that Mattson directed that he's editing now is also going to be pretty amazing. So definitely keep your eyes on
Batman too. So come on, this man's on top of the world right now. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, Chad, for your time. Hope to catch up with you again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
For the answers.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Why do you tattoo fish?
Jude,
Yeah.
are you okay?